Hi, I'm Tim from the Marathon Mates. We are on the cusp of yet another marathon major. This time it's the Boston Marathon, which is set to run in about a week's time. On this episode, we'll share our memories of the Boston Marathon long weekend, as well as give you our tips and tricks to help you get the most out of your Boston experience. We are the only podcast with six-star world marathon medalist co-hosts, and this is the Flying Runner podcast. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying Runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm Tim from the Marathon Mates, and can you believe it? This is episode number 92 of the Flying Runner podcast. On tonight's episode, we are talking everything you need to know about the legendary Boston Marathon. It's the world's oldest marathon event, and it has a history which is steeped in triumph and tragedy. There's a reason why so many runners around the world revere Boston so much and put it at the top of their bucket lists. There truly is something special about this event. On tonight's episode, we're going to talk about our experiences of Boston from the Expo to Newbury Street, where the unofficial Expo is located. We'll talk about the race and, of course, the course itself, which starts in Hopkinton and leads you up Heartbreak Hill and then onto the famous right on Hereford, left on Boylston, before finishing in front of the Boston Public Library at Copley Place. In addition, we'll share with you our special travel tips for Boston and the things you should see and do whilst there. Baseball at Fenway Park, anyone? But before we do any of that, let me introduce my co-hosts. Tonight I've got Tony, Lucia, and of course my running buddy, Tara. Now, before I ask about your weeks, let me just apologise to you and to our listeners for last week. Unfortunately, I missed last week's episode with Fleur Cushman from Currans. I suffered a mild medical event, which meant that I was unable to attend. So apologies for that, guys. But how was your week, and what have you been up to running wise? Start with you, Lucia.
So it hasn't been a big running week for me this week, even though it should be, because I haven't mentioned this before, but I've actually started last week. I'm doing a pacing course so I can be a qualified pacer, just so I can learn the tips and the tricks and the best way to pace and to learn more about it. So already week one, it's been interesting. I've learned a lot already. So I had to do a practice one, and I actually got bang on target, but I was still concerned because some parts I was over, some parts I was under, but overall it balanced out to be on pace. So yeah, a lighter training week, because this Saturday night in Sydney, it's the Nike Women's After Dark Tour. So on that one, I'm pacing. I'm a sweeper, and also Peter, who we had on a few episodes ago, she's pacing the 2 hour 45 half marathon. So if any of our listeners in Sydney are doing it, if you see me at the back, come and say hello.
So just on that, Lucia, what is a perfect pacer? Is it somebody who holds the same pace all the way through, or is it somebody who gets each kilometre mark the same pace all the way through, or is it just somebody who has the best average pace that equates to that pace over the duration?
So
is it better to go fast and then slow, or is it better to hold an even pace?
So the theory behind it is they should hold even paces all the way through, and then you should come in. So for instance, if you pace in a marathon, at the halfway, you should come, at the halfway and at the finish, you should come in 30 seconds either side of your pacing time. So for instance, if I was pacing the 7 hour for Sydney, let's say, I would have to come in at 6 hours, 59 minutes and 30 seconds, up to 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Anywhere 30 seconds either side is classified as being successful. So it should be even pace all the way through. Like, you shouldn't go slower, like faster in the first half and then slower in the second one. It does have to be even pace throughout.
The amount of paces I've come across over the years that are running faster than their pace by up to half a minute, 30 seconds per kilometre, and then particularly in marathons, I've seen it, and then you're like, geez, these guys are going so quick,
Yeah,
and then wonders why everyone dies off along the way.
yeah. So that's what's been interesting doing this course, and the pacing manager for Sydney is also the pacing manager for Ballarat Marathon as well, and he runs a tight ship, a really good ship. So I've already learned a lot from pacing the first time, pacing this time, but also doing this course.
Yeah, that's good. And Tony, how's your week been, mate?
Yeah, last week was interesting. I didn't get normally during the week I try and do 3 runs, but didn't happen. I only got the 1 in. And then on Saturday, I was due for a 15K, which I did. But the key for me on Saturday was about doing it it's relatively easy. So for me, I just wanted to get it done. And so it was 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, and I just stuck with that the whole way. So it felt good to finish, but I just needed to get a win because Garmin just keeps putting me down and playing games with my head. So I just wanted to get a win so I could turn around to my watch and say, see, I told you. So the interesting thing about my watch is that I did a 4K during the week in the morning. So ultimately I got 2 runs done, a 4K and a 15K. But after the 4K, it said, you beauty, I'm productive again. I said, finally, it's reset. Here we go. And then I went for a walk the next day and it said strained. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? So needless to say, I'm still strained. I went for a walk this morning. The walk was a recovery walk. It logged it as a recovery walk, but it still says I'm strained. So anyway, I'm just ignoring it because I know I've got to start putting in some miles. So that was my week.
Time to throw it out or ignore it. Ignoring it is probably the best way. Yep. And Tara, good to see you. I haven't seen you for ages. Hello.
Hi. So, not since this morning anyway. I did 2 walks this week. I did one with about 8.5 Ks with a good friend of mine, Diane, and I did another walk with another really good friend of mine, Lisa, Friday. So I think that was maybe Wednesday and Friday that I did those ones. And then I did park run with you on Saturday, and I managed to get 19 Ks done yesterday very, very slowly.
Well done.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just running. Yesterday we were running with our son Patrick, who's training for his first ever marathon. So he's doing that down the Gold Coast. So it was nice to the 3 of us actually for Team Ellis, 3 of us to go out and do a bit of a run and get some kilometres in the legs, wasn't it, Tara? It was great.
It was, yeah. The boys were running a bit fast for me, so I left them at 9 Ks and let them keep going, and they caught me again right at the end. So yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and it's just starting to get serious now. We're into April, so first real races. I know we had Run Army a week or 2 ago, but now we're into the real races in May. GC 30 kilometre races coming up in about 6 weeks' time, and then we start to move into Brisbane Marathon, Gold Coast Marathon. So it's not that far away, guys. So it's time to start getting serious with the training and starting to really look at what we're doing, hey?
We'll get it done.
Alrighty. Yeah, we'll get it done. Muscle memory is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's always about winging it, isn't it?
Finish lines, not finish times.
That's exactly it.
Yes, you can wing it when you've got muscle memory and strength and you've been there and done that. But for many of our listeners, it's the first time they've done it and you can't wing it. You've got to put the effort in. So,
yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. Now it's that time of the week where we talk about the news. Tony, what's been happening around the world this week?
Well, it's there's always a heat going on in the running world, and during the week, I think we saw our good friend Gout here in Australia get tested in the 200 meters, but I'm not going to talk about that. But what I am going to talk about is, let me try and pronounce this. It's Pyongyang Marathon returns after a 6-year break. And for those that don't know, Pyongyang is the capital of North Korea. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So,
and you're saying it correctly, Pyongyang.
Yeah, I've got my Google Translate up here, so using the phonics on it or whatever it's called. So it's returning for the first time in 6 years. So it did stop in 2019 due to COVID. And basically, amateur runners from various countries on Thursday departed Beijing for Pyongyang to attend the marathon event held in the North Korean capital on April 6th. Applications for the event had been filed from 45 people from 45 countries, including Britain, Germany, Canada, China, and Iran, according to Beijing-based Choreo Tours. So really interesting. I've never ever dreamed of visiting North Korea, and I've got probably zero interest in doing Pyongyang, but Marathon Mates, is it part of your bucket list at all? Luch, is that something that's grabbing you?
If there was a Disney, I'd say, yep, sign me up straight away. But nah, that's one I may have to skip.
Actually, I was just thinking, it's if you hear all the words about North Korea, how all their stores are like fake and phony shop fronts, so's their marathon. You only have to run 4.2K. But that's a joke, listeners. All right. Okay.
I was just going to say, the only reason why I'd run it is if I'd done 203 other countries in the world and it was the last one to be able to tick off that you've done a marathon in every country in the world. But it would be an interesting one only because of the remoteness of it all. You can't fly into it direct. You have to go via Beijing. Everyone has to go in all together on this one tour in. All the internationals, they get housed in the one spot. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You put on a bus, you go and run the race, and they tell you to bugger off pretty much after that. So it would be an interesting one from that perspective, going into an area where you can't go. But, yeah, not for me, I don't think.
No, certainly not for me. Now, the other marathon that we do seem to talk about just about every week at the moment, it's let's talk about the TCS Sydney Marathon, brought to you by ASICS. Is that the correct term that I've got there, Luch?
100%.
Presented by ASICS, sorry, not brought to you by, presented. So they announced during the week record-breaking prize pool of 135,000 AUD, which has been set aside exclusively for Australian athletes, making it the largest prize offering for any marathon event in Australia ever. This landmark investment is part of the Sydney Marathon commitment to elevating Aussie runners and fostering our elite running talent right here in Sydney. The goal is to build an enduring legacy that supports Australia's elite athletes, providing them with world-class opportunities. The prize pool is just one element of a broader strategy designed to nurture and elevate the profile of Australian runners, whilst inspiring future generations. I reckon they could just be doing that with a couple of extra dollars to aim high and compete on the global stage. We often talk, don't we, runners, about the benefits of hosting a world major. We often talk about things like the global exposure for the city and the country. But I think this is pretty cool news, just quietly. Your thoughts, Tim?
I agree with you. I think it's going to be fantastic. A long-term legacy that, you know, if we can invest money back in and give prize money back to Australian runners competing at pretty good levels to encourage them to go there rather than overseas, then that's only a positive. I guess that's part of it. The next part of it is to then bring in the training facilities and all the rest of it, which hopefully the Sydney Marathon does invest back into Australian athletics as well. Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
And just
Luch, I was just about to ask, Luch, is there any inside tips on just which Aussie athletes they're aiming for?
One that's he's well known in New South Wales. Thomas DeCanto works full time. He's an amazing runner. I can't remember if it wasn't Tokyo. Sorry, not Paris. Possibly Tokyo. He was very close to getting an Olympic qualifier, and he's just like very very down to earth athlete. Because he actually raised concerns last year with the marathon that the Aussie semi-elite athletes weren't given the same treatment, like in terms of VIP bathrooms at the start line, just things like that. And so this change from the marathon team is excellent. And just to add further, they've brought on board Ben St. Lawrence to actually lead the elite program and to make sure that they've got the best elites running the course. So, and for our listeners that don't know, Ben St. Lawrence is a former Olympian marathoner. He coaches in New South Wales. So it's a very good appointment by the team. No doubt he's going to build a program, not only for this year, but to leave that legacy as well.
And bear in mind, we've just got London just around the corner, and we've got a lot of our great athletes. You know, Buchanan's running there, Jack Rayner's running there, as well as some of the girls are running there. Really, there's an Aussie race within a race at London, and I think that should then give them sufficient time to recover and be ready for Sydney. So who knows? So the last piece of news is always one that I would say it's one of Tim's favourite activities, is go searching for things that can be debunked. And once again, he has come up with it. One of the latest trends at the moment is to drink oxygenated water, right? Oxygenated water as a way of getting more oxygen into your muscles to help prevent fatigue. Well, basically, don't, right? Because the studies that they've done dispels the trend. The concept sounds plausible, you've got to admit. More oxygen in your water equals more oxygen in your blood, which means faster and stronger legs. But apparently the study, according to a recent review of a study by a sports nutrition researcher and educator, and I'm not even going to pronounce that. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name, but he sounds European. They found out that there was zero.
Erska Drickendroop.
That's it. What Tim said. Zero benefits of oxygenated water. The problem is that we breathe in oxygen through our lungs, not through our stomachs. So no human studies have ever confirmed that meaningful amounts of oxygen digested via our stomachs lead to increased oxygenated blood. So there you go. Based on the study, it's unlikely to provide any real benefit, although I can imagine that oxygen would sort of work like a gas in the stomach, so maybe expelling that gas in the forms of flatulence may create a bit of a performance lift, but I might have to do some research on that one. But that's the news.
Thanks, Tony. I did throw that one in there. I thought it was a bit interesting, that one. But anyway, it's been dispelled. There you go. All right, we're going to talk about...
Debunked.
We're going to talk about... Yeah, debunked. We should get one of those debunked.
Yeah, maybe, Luch and Tara, maybe we need a new segment called Tim Debunks Stuff.
It wouldn't be all the time. It's hard enough finding some of these things as it is. So
yeah.
All right, we're going to talk Boston. This is what our listeners are here to listen to. This is what we love talking about. We've done some episodes before about the Boston Marathon. They're quite popular. Episodes number 41 to 44, which sort of recapped Tara's, myself, and Lucia's experience last year in Boston. As well as back on episode number 38, we had Robert Wang, who came and joined us and shared all of his fantastic tips regarding Boston. And as everyone knows, Robert is the fountain of knowledge when it comes to the majors and is the creator of the World Marathon Majors Facebook group. So if you can't get enough of us talking about Boston tonight and you want to hear more, go and listen to those early episodes. Trust me, they are gold. They are a lot more amateur than what our show is now, but the information is still very worthwhile. So let's talk memories tonight, guys. I've got no questions here. I'm just going to open the floor up and I'm going to talk about the experience ourselves. As a reminder for our listeners, Tara, myself, and Lucia, we completed Boston just last year in 2024, and Tony, you and your lovely wife Sharon completed it in 2023. We all travelled with our favourite travel company, Travelling Fit, which do some really amazing packages. So we have similar experiences based on the fact that it was a Travelling Fit tour that we're on. But I want to start at the beginning. Most people, when they arrive in Boston, will try. So go back to the start. Boston Marathon is not a traditional marathon in that it is hosted on a Sunday. It's actually run on Patriots Day, which is a Monday public holiday in Boston. So it's a Monday marathon. Now, it's probably the only marathon I think I've ever run on a Monday. So there you go. So most people, as a result of it being hosted on a Monday, will tend to arrive in Boston around Friday or Saturday into Boston for the marathon on the Monday. We all arrived, I think, on the Friday. I think, Lucia, you may have been a day earlier into Boston. But generally, most of the activities happen around the Copley Square area of Boston, which is just a little bit out of downtown Boston itself. But it's close enough that it's walking distance from downtown Boston. From the airport to the hotel, there are free buses and transfers that will take you to various parts of Boston. And the one we took us straight to our hotel, pretty much in the Back Bay area around Copley Square. We all stayed at the Western Hotel, which is in Copley Square and is literally meters, would it be, guys, meters away from the finish line and the finish line precinct. And for us, that was a good stay. I don't know what your thoughts were on the hotel and the location there, guys.
I thought the hotel,
stay there or elsewhere?
I loved it because, and we'll get further into it, but it can lead you to everywhere. It's got 2 shopping centres pretty much attached to it, even though Tim said it's literally across the road from the finish line. But on race day, you can't. They unfortunately block off the shortcut back to the hotel, so then you have to kind of go around, but still, you can easily see the hotel. I absolutely loved it and had a Starbucks. Like, it's a bit of a bad bunch coffee-wise, but it's got everything you need there. I'd stay there again. Absolutely no issues.
Yeah, I thought the Western was just centrally located. You could just, as Luch was saying, just walking distance to Boylston Street, and everything's happening there. You could take the back entrance through the shopping centres to get into the Expo. It was, I just location. There was a good bar on the reception level, which was always a good place to people watch, and you never know who you were going to see. So all the elites stayed in the one across the road. I've forgotten the name of that one, but
whatever it is.
Square or Park?
Or something. It's the one with the dog.
Where the dog.
Yeah. And hotel was awesome. In respect of transfers from the airport to the hotel, I've got no idea. I can't remember how we got there. But I noticed, Tim, you're saying take the free bus. I'm pretty certain we did not take the free bus. So.
It was very easy, wasn't it, Tara, taking the bus from the airport to Copley? It's free there, and I think you pay $3 or $5 or something for it to go for the return journey back to the airport if you choose to do that later on, $3. Now, Tara, we stayed there early on and then we moved into the downtown area. But from a race perspective, where would you prefer to stay? In the downtown area and walk backwards and forwards, or would you prefer to stay in the Copley Square area, in that Back Bay area?
Well, I guess with us, they were doing renovations to Copley Square the year we were there. So the Expo and not the Expo, sorry, they normally have like a little
Fanfare or
Thank,
Fanfest.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Lucia. I'm trying to think of the word that it was called. So it's FanFest, and that's where they've got activities. They've got all these fun things to do. They've got, like you name it, they've got it there sort of deal. It's not the expo, but it's actually just like a bit of it's a fair, or like a expo,
big,
but a different way.
There was merch stands, there were bands playing, Copley Square was amazing.
What do they call them? Interactive zones or something like that, aren't they? Is what they sort of call them. Yeah.
So the year that we were there, Copley Square was actually getting renovations done to it, and that's where they normally hold the fan fest thing. So we were actually down where Quincy Hall and all of that was, down towards the main part of Boston, down towards City Hall. So if you're walking, it's about maybe 2.5, 3 Ks from our hotel down to there. Personally, I think staying where we stayed is the ideal place to stay. It's closer to everything. The year we weren't, it wasn't, apart from the finish line and start line and the expo. But for that FanFest thing, it was a bit further away. But normally, yes, it's definitely in the best spot to be. I wouldn't stay down in the old part of Boston. I'd stay up in the newer part for the race.
Yep, in the Back Bay area.
Back
All
Bay,
right,
yep.
and then we did the Expo. I guess that's the first thing we always try to get to. And I know, Lucia, you were very excited going to the Expo. You had your wallet out with huge amounts of cash in it, ready to go. What were your thoughts, firstly, Lucia, of the Expo?
The trick is, for our listeners, you can enter the Expo through the Prudential Shopping Centre. So if you're staying at the Western with Travelling Fit, first of all, you have to go through, I think it's Copley Place, which then leads you through to the Prudential Centre Shopping Centre. Keep following the path, and there's signs for the Convention Centre because there's a back entrance to it. And I made Tara and Tim, they just arrived from Australia, and I dragged them there straight away. I think we were there like an hour and a half before the Expo actually opened, and we were some of the first in queue. So door opens, we go through happy days, and we're at the front. And for our listeners who listened to the Boston recap last year, this story may or may not be familiar. So we're in queue. We're like, yep, plenty of time to wait, no problem. And then Tara sees some people walking in front of us. And she's like, oh, I want to go check it out. We're like, all right, off you go. We're like, because I think there was like maybe 6 or 7 of us that all decided to go to the Expo together. Well, okay, yep, off you go. So she goes, and then she calls Tim over, and Tim's like, okay, come. We're like, well, if Tim's saying to go, it should be all right. Let's go. So then we all leave. I think only one of the group stayed in their spot. Long story short, it turns out, and this wasn't Tara's fault, I'm going to blame the jet lag. We got to the back of the queue from where we were, but then saying that, we did talk to some lovely, lovely volunteers. One of them, she takes time off every year just to volunteer at Boston because the volunteers have to, they also have to apply. Great expo. As our listeners know, I love a good expo. So first of all, when you actually make it to the bib collection, you get your marathon bib, and what they did was for anyone that was getting their 6th start, they rang those damn cowbells. So that was actually quite special. And then from there, you can go pick up your 5K bib, and then from there you go into the expo. The Adidas section of it wasn't too bad when we first got there, but then I went back later with Julie, and it was just a nightmare. It was that busy, but it was one of those expos that if you wanted to become a Navy SEAL, you could, or if you needed female hygiene products, which I think from memory, Tim may have taken a few samples just to try out. Yeah. But it was good because everyone was there in such good spirits, and seeing the 6-star wall as well, because then I had to take pictures for friends who had already gotten their 6-star. I loved it. It was a great expo.
Tony, your experience would have been different to ours.
Yeah, 23, the expo wasn't as great, but roofing, etc. But the just a couple of really points from my point of view with the Expo. I think we would have popped over to the Expo 3 or 4 times during our stay there because we were so close. And even though the Expo, for example, had run out of my size in the jacket, it was still available at the Fan Fest at Copley Square. So there's no shortage of merchandise from my memories. Everyone said, get there early, get there early, get there early. There were times that we popped in and there was just no one there, no one lining up for their ticket. So I just be mindful of that. So if you can't get there early, don't fret.
Yeah.
Because it's likely you get there at 3:00 in the afternoon and you line up, there's no one in the line. And as I said, hopefully the merchandise is like previous years where there has been plenty. So, the Expo was one that, it's not listed as one of the best in my eyes in 2023. But we kept going back, so it had some allure. So just the whole sense of Boston is just amazing. It's just incredible. So, yeah.
And Tara?
I was very jet lagged, so the memories of the Expo for me were a little fuzzy. I do remember we went to, and I can't remember the name of the place even, but it was not Newbury Street where all the pop-up expos were, but we saw Tommy Rivers Poussey, and it was upstairs.
Newbury Street.
It was that, okay, yeah. So I told you, like, I was very jet lagged. And I actually think that was probably my favourite little place that I went into. I found my favourite gels there, got to meet my running hero. So don't forget, it's not just about the Expo for Boston. Like, there's all these little other pop-up places that you can go to, like Copley Square. There's that Newbury Street. There's just something happening in every part of Boston. So it's not just about the Expo. And as Tony said, most of the stores that you go into have actually got a lot of the merchandise that you'd find at the Expo as well. So if you don't want to fight the crowds at the Expo, don't. Just go get your bib and then go out again and have a look at the other places. They've got some wonderful stuff.
Yeah, so Marathon Sports, which is right at the finish line there, has all the merchandise, like all of it, as does Dick's Sporting Store, which is also on Boylston Street between the finish line and the convention centre. So there's plenty of opportunities, as well as a fan fest, as well as other sports stores and other things, pop-up stores around town. Now, Tara, you've mentioned Newbury Street. So for our listeners who don't know, Newbury Street is a street that runs parallel to Boylston and is about one block back or to the east of Boylston, isn't it? Or about, it might be north of Boylston at that point. And they're just pop-up stores, that just are along there. What are your thoughts or memories of that? I know, Tony, you loved it. I think you had a different experience than us on Newbury Street.
Yeah, we sort of stumbled across Newbury Street quite late, and Newbury Street was the place where all the brands that don't sponsor the Boston Marathon, brands like Adidas had center place in the Expo, but other brands like, the Asics of the world, the Brooks of the world, the Sauconys, they were all in Newbury Street, and it was pumping when we sort of walked through. But as I said, we popped in late and we hadn't really known about it. And we only really discovered it because one day we're out for a walk and, about 32 million runners took off in one of those shakeout runs and, what's going on down there, So, it seemed to be the place to be, albeit Sharon and I are quite private people. We didn't go and test the crowds. One of the interesting things you mentioned before is Marathon Sports near the finish line and near the memorials as well, down Boylston Street. It was a nightmare to shop the year that we went, and because they don't just have the merchandise, they also have their own merchandise geared around the Boston Marathon. So it was incredibly crowded, and I think they had 2 or 3 locations, if I remember rightly. and they were all just pretty jam-packed. But Newbury Street had a real vibe to it, and if you're into running influences, that's where they're going to be. So.
Yeah, 100%. Tara, what are your thoughts of Newbury Street?
Yeah, like I said, that was probably my favourite, only because I got to meet Tommy Rivers Pissay. And for those of you who don't know who he is, please Google him. He is the most amazing ultra runner ever, and his personal struggles with cancer, where he was supposed to be dead throughout COVID. For him to come back from that, just to see him, yeah, I felt like I was meeting, the Queen. It was, I was so in awe of him. So, yep. Yeah, Newbury Street, amazing.
Yep. And Lucia, I guess your memories of Newbury Street are Shake Shack and McDonald's. Are those there a McDonald's? I don't think there was a McDonald's there, but there was definitely a Shake Shack there.
Yeah, no, Shake Shack I may have gone a few times, but also, as you've all said, it was great having little pop-ups as well, because I bought some merchandise at ASICS in which you could get like a T-shirt, and then you could have whatever you wanted printed on. It was just, and they were so welcoming as well. And then obviously when we started talking, are you from Australia? And so that started another conversation. I loved it.
Yep. Yeah, I guess for me, the other thing I note about Newbury Street is it's not closed to traffic. So it is very busy, particularly after Friday night when they do close down Boylston Street. So the footpaths or the sidewalks in that area become quite crowded. The crowds in the stores become quite crowded, where, when we waited for Tommy Rivs, there was a line that went from upstairs, down the stairs, down through the lower store, out the door, and halfway down the block. And you'll see that when you're there, that if there's somebody famous or somebody that's a celebrity or an influencer or something, there'll be a big lineup of people out the front all the way down the footpath. And as Tony said, that's where a lot of the shakeout runs start, when people want to go and meet these guys. So it is quite a busy spot, but there's a certain energy in Newbury Street, I found as well. So, and then what Tara and I found was Friday night, and I think it was around about 6 o'clock, Tara, maybe on Friday night, they shut down Boylston Street. And it really, and I highly recommend this to anyone who's listening that's going this year or in future years, is get to the finish line area or the finish line precinct on the Friday night. They started pumping the music up. You could walk over the finish line. You could take photos lying on top of the finish line in the middle of the street. You could get the big timing clocks and everything behind you in photos. And there was a real vibe about it, wasn't there, Tara?
It was sort of like a party, because, they did have the music going, the disco sort of thing happening. And I think that was maybe Marathon Sports had sort of organised most of that sort of party. I'm not sure, but it was a lot of fun. It was, all the volunteers were coming out as well, and you get to meet and greet some people at the same time.
Yeah, and Tony, I remember when you were in Boston, you were talking about how all the buildings were all lit up and had colours of Boston on them, and there were signs everywhere, and particularly around that Back Bay area, but also through the city as well.
Yeah, just right around Copley Square. The hotel where all the elite stayed at was all in the blue and gold unicorn from once the evening came around. So that the atmosphere is just incredible at Boston, and you cannot fault the way that they do the marathon now. Copley Square, it's a party. One of the first things we did when we dropped in on the Friday night, we were late getting there. We went to the beer tent and we had a couple of good, nice, cold Samuel Adams beers. And I know Kim Tudjman. She did Boston the year we did it. She would go and sit just in front of the bandstand there and just chill for a couple of hours, just watching all sorts of bands and community groups. And it's just an incredible experience being part of the Boston Marathon. And all this with the nerves that in a couple of days you're going to be running the course. So it's just phenomenal.
Yep, it is. And Lucia, then on Saturday we get to the Boston BAA 5K race. And I know you did this. I remember going there with you. So what are your recollections, I guess, around the 5K race? And do you have any sort of tips for our listeners if they're going to do the 5K race?
probably the big tip, first of all, would be if you want to do the 5K race for a PB, don't, because it's an absolute shit show, pardon the language, how you actually get into the starting area, because they make you go down one path which is so tiny, and there's a little, because I remember when we did it, there was like a fence that wasn't fenced off properly, so everyone's trying to get through there. But again, everyone's there for the same vibes, just to have a good run. But the big tip, which we got from Robert Wang, get your T-shirt before the start of the 5K, because you've got more chance of getting the size you want. And it was just such a great little shakeout. You're going through some parts of the marathon course. I'm high-fiving people. I had an absolute blast. So most of our listeners will know that most of my running, I do run walk intervals, but that one, I just got into rhythm and I ran the whole thing nice and easy. The only time I stopped was when I was taking photos, because I may have photo bombed a couple of photos, because it's just that type of vibe. Everyone there was so happy, and if you weren't happy, something was wrong. And then because it actually finishes back in the common, and so as you're going over the finish line of the marathon, because I think they have a sign saying this is not the finish or something like that, and then you get a goodie bag at the end, a snack bag, which is quite good, because I kept a fair few of those snacks for post race day. I loved it, absolutely loved it, so much fun.
Yep. Tony, you did the 5K race as well. You got some memories?
Yeah, great T-shirt is still one of my favourites. 5K race was good, very similar to Lucia, of course. I don't think they change how they marshal people in. It's supposed to be a self-seating event, and you're just following the crowd most of the time. I don't think you get too much of a chance to actually seed yourself wherever you're going to be. It was a nice run. You actually enjoy running through the finish line, whereas thinking back to the marathon, just getting to that finish line was like a matter of life or death. But you enjoy it on this Saturday because you're running through it and you're having a giggle about the sign saying this is not the finish line. You finish back at the
7/12 of a mile to go or something.
Yeah.
I couldn't work out how far that was.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it. You saw a lot of people. I saw the big unit that runs slow as AF. What's his name? I've forgotten it now.
Darius? No.
Yeah,
Martinez.
Yeah. So he was running the 5K we did, and I've run past him. He's got all his turtle gear on, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, it was a nice time. But my legs were heavy. That's the other thing that stands out to me, because we only landed the night before, so my legs were heavy, which was a little bit of a precursor, I guess, to I should have taken more in on that. But anyway, 5K was awesome.
Tara, you got to play with some dogs, and
yeah,
trying
that's
not
the most
to trip over
important
potholes.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, the dogs.
Yep.
Lots of golden retrievers. So Boston's well known for its golden retrievers for race day, and at the end there was another dog that I was playing with. So that's my biggest memories of the 5K was playing with dogs. Yep.
Yeah.
As I do on all races.
My memories are just one of potholes everywhere on that course. There was potholes, and more potholes. So you got to be careful when you're running and making sure you watch your feet. And if the weather's nice, like it was for us last year, it was nice to just sit out on the common on the grass there. We were on a little bit of a hill and got to actually look over the race precinct there and enjoy our goodie bags and have some happy memories up there. Now, on top of that, Lucia, Saturday is also the day when they do Blessing of the Runners. That's something that you went to, I think, as well. Was that on the Saturday or the Sunday? I think it was the Saturday, wasn't it?
No, that's on the Sunday. So on the Sunday,
yeah.
I didn't come with you guys for the Travelling Fit Shakeout run. I had an opportunity to do a shakeout run, something that Abbott is doing now, shakeout runs for potential 6-star finishes. So got to meet a whole bunch of 6-star hopefuls. We went for a shakeout run, and then on the way back to the hotel, I was walking past the church that's right at the finish line, because I'd heard about the blessing of the athlete. So I remember I was walking past, it was just after 9, and there was one starting at 9, and the queue was just massive. So, and then I put it into our chat. I'm like, guys, I'm going to the line at 11. Anyone want to come? I'm going to be in the lobby at this time, whatever. It was one of the best things I did that race weekend. Everyone really gets into it. So they come in, they play bagpipes, and the way they introduce it as well. Like, for instance, if you're doing if you've done more than 20 Bostons, stand up, everyone's cheering. If this is your first Boston stand up, everyone cheers. At that point, I start crying. And they also introduced a number of people who, because years ago they started knitting scarves, so it became a whole tradition. They don't do it anymore, but hearing so many of the stories, even around the Boston bombings as well, it was, for me, it was so meaningful, and you actually felt like, and it was actually a privilege to be there. And you actually, because I don't know if that helped me on the day or what, but it's, if you don't need to be religious to go, because trust me, I'm far from religious, but it was just how much people of Boston appreciate the race and appreciate the runners. So for anyone that's listening that is doing it, I can highly recommend it. You're sitting down for a bit as well, so time off your feet. It's just, it's a lasting memory for me. It's one I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's one that I remember everyone over there. There was a lot of hype around it when I was in town. So the other thing on the Saturday is they have a number of other races, particularly around that finish line precinct, around where the church is, of junior athletes. Essentially, they're college athletes, I think, racing and competing against one another there. So there's a lot of racing. It's 1,500, 200, 1,500 or 3,000 meter races, and they're pretty quick races. They're over and done with really quick, but the guys are running really fast, so I really enjoyed that. And then on the Sunday day we were there, we did shakeout runs, a good place to do a shakeout runs along the Charles River, taking in Harvard and MIT. But the other thing, Tara, you mentioned Golden Retrievers. There was a meeting that we went to in Boston Common, and what would there have been, 100 or more Golden Retrievers there?
Yep.
And you were in heaven, yeah?
They were very cute, and there was old ones, young ones. There were just all types of Golden Retrievers, all different colours, and yeah, that's my highlight of that day as well.
Yeah. So they all come out to play with one another and to catch up. They're all wearing scarves, and the members of the public are allowed to go up there and talk to the owners and pat the dogs, yeah?
Yeah, unfortunately, not happening this year. Golden Retriever meetup has been canned. It's been nixed, and apparently the city of Boston, or however it works from a municipality, has just said no. Outside of the official special events, there's no special events to be held on Boston Common. And of course, the Golden Retriever meetup was all about the dog Spencer, which was sitting there with the Boston Strong flag every year from 2013 through to 2022 when he passed away. And they've now got a statue of Spencer in the very spot that he sat at during the marathon. So, yeah, disappointing that it's not on this year. So.
That's a shame.
That is sad.
It was good fun.
Oh.
Yeah. It was just
Well,
a
sorry
nice
that
day
all
in
those
the park.
people don't get to see the Golden Retrievers, because that was a good day, especially if you're a dog person like me.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to race day. Marathon Monday, guys. What are your memories of Marathon Monday, guys? Let's start with getting to the start line and the early, late start, whatever you want to call it. Let's go with you, Lucia.
So my race morning, I did my usual prep, had a bagel with peanut butter. Tip, if you don't want to buy a whole jar of peanut butter, if you're staying at a Starbucks, if you ask them nicely, they actually gave me 2 tubs of peanut butter, because I'm like, I didn't want to buy a whole jar. So yeah, so if you get someone nice, and obviously I was polite, I said, oh, do you sell bagels with peanut butter? I just need the, I'm happy to pay for it. Oh, no, that's all right, take it. So side note on that. So we walked from the hotel to Boston Common, and then we got put on the yellow school buses, which which you see in shows, movies all the time. And it's such a production line. You go through security, and then they usher you to your right starting areas. The bus ride's about an hour. I tried to sleep for a bit of it. I couldn't. I was actually nervous because I put so much work into it. But it's just, again, everyone's so excited to be on those buses. And then when you get to the start area, like, I was kind of like, is this it? I think I was expecting more from it, but again,
Just high school.
everyone's just so excited. And one thing I didn't realise until after the race, because I think you may have mentioned it, Tim, how there were snipers on the roofs. Did not see a single one.
Yeah, we did. How about you, Tony? What was the 2023 experience like?
They're very similar. You jump on a yellow bus that takes forever to get out there. There's no air conditioning. It was a rainy day we were in, and thankfully they had, because apparently the high school used to have just dirt and grass, and it was cemented in the years before, so I was very thankful for that. It's a procession line through the buses, and it just seemed to take forever. That's my number one memory, and I was just hoping that I wasn't busting, because that hour would have been torture, but It was okay.
So I guess that is a good tip for our listeners. Go to the toilet at Boston Common where you line up for the buses. There are plenty of toilets there. Go to the toilet before you jump onto the bus. And the other thing is, don't try and jump the queue early. If you're meant to be at the bus at 9 o'clock, be at the bus at 9 o'clock. Don't get there at 8 o'clock thinking you're going to get there early. Your bibs have all got bus numbers on them and bus times, and they're color-coded, and you'll only be able to get into the time when you're allocated. Now, Tara, your experience at the race precincts, the 700-metre walk to the start line, what are your thoughts on that? What are your recollections? This is stuff you can remember.
Yeah, so I do remember this one. As you get off the buses, you walk up the hill and into the first part of the area where they have you for waiting, and it's got like the sign that says, well, this is Hopkinton or whatever it is, the race starts here. There's a set of toilets there. If there's a huge line, don't do my mistake and wait in those lines. As you walk back down towards the actual start line, which is about a 700-metre walk, there is toilets down there as well. So don't panic if you're going to get to those ones. Start your walk down to the start line early as well. Don't hang around that little race precinct for too long, because by the time the bus drops you off, you've really only got about 20 minutes to sit around there. And if the toilet lines are long, what we found is by the time we'd gone to the toilet, it had emptied out and there was nobody around. So we were almost racing down to the start line and found more toilets on the way through anyway. So it's well organised. Don't try and jump out of your corrals as well, because they will not let you go into a different wave start. They have got very strict rules where they will look at your bibs. If you're not in the right wave, they will kick you out and push you to the right one. So it's very structured. The actual start line itself for Boston, though, is pretty underwhelming. I don't know about anyone else, but it's very underwhelming to me. Good cheering, but the start line is very underwhelming.
And a downhill start as well. You're running downhill for the first mile. So, the race itself, you run through the famous towns. You start at Hopkinton, you run through Ashland, through Framingham, Natick, Wellesley, Newton, Brookline, before finally coming into Boston itself. Lucia, what are your memories out there on the course itself? For me personally, lots of crowds in each of those towns and not very many crowds along the way. But what are your memories?
Probably not the most scenic course I've done or the most interesting, but yet certain parts were just absolutely amazing. Like when you're going past the Wellesley Ladies College and the tunnel of Scream, I'm literally high-fiving that whole line. It just gives you that extra oomph of energy. And then I can't remember where we were at one point, but it was starting to get hot, and people were just handing out bottles of water, paper towels to wipe your face down. So everyone gets into it. They don't care how fast, how slow you are. They they love the fact that you're running. So for me, it was just how welcoming everyone was. But I think one of my favorite parts, and when you see the coastline, you're like, yes, nearly there. And then it's the famous two, last turns right into Hereford, left into Boylston. You hear it all the time, but when you're actually on that, you're like, holy crap, I'm actually about to do this. I'm actually about to finish the Boston Marathon. It's for me, it was such a surreal moment.
Yep. Tony, your memories?
Yeah, I like the downhill at the start. Our first 5 and first 10 was really good pace considering where we needed to be, and it's ultimately what got us across the line in the time that we ultimately did. But Scream Tunnel, I loved it because Sharon was getting annoyed that everyone was cheering for me and not her, and it's always nice to annoy the one you love. So. But yeah, I love the Scream Tunnel. I actually enjoyed the crowds on Newton Hills. I did not enjoy the hills, 100% there, but there were some real pockets of community support there that was just amazing. So really enjoyed it. The Sitgo sign, yeah, okay, that's a fuel station. I'm not overly excited about that, but I get it because it's that point of coming into Boston itself. Yeah, and yeah, like there's memories of the course. I enjoyed the course. I enjoyed the whole weekend at Boston. I'd love to do it again, but yeah, and the Newton Hills, believe it or not, would be one of my great memories of just the community there, cheering us on and really getting behind us because it's the toughest part of the course. I don't care how much you love hills, Tim, it is the toughest part of the course. And to have that support behind you as you're doing that was just phenomenal. So,
Yep. And Tara, your memories? I know we've discussed them many
Probably
times
the best
before.
part to me. So we'll skip me. And go straight to you.
No, that's all right. I guess for me, it's the New England architecture. It's like running through a movie scene at times. You know, you've got the big houses with the pitched roofs, the attics, the basements, the big yards around them, the big elm trees or whatever that are around them. It is stunning New England architecture that you run past. Those historic towns have got a lot of historic buildings in them. The fire station there, Lucia, where you passed us. You know, it's famous landmarks. The only advice I'd give to our listeners is Heartbreak Hill. It's very hard to know when you're on Heartbreak Hill until you're on Heartbreak Hill. There's 5, 6, 7 little precursor hills beforehand through Newton there, and you're never quite sure whether you're on Heartbreak Hill or not. And so I found that quite challenging at times when I was going up those hills. Not that I was worried. The hills are hills. They are what they are. But it was, you know, once you hit the top of Heartbreak Hill, there's no more hills that are that big anymore. It's nice rolling hills. It's easy. It's just that getting to the top of Heartbreak Hill and knowing you're on it. And that's what I struggled with the most. The other bit to remind people of is the quality of the road surface. It is crap. It is full of potholes. You are going to trip over if you're not watching what you're doing. So you need to keep looking down, particularly when you're in those loud areas where there's lots of people screaming. And you don't need to worry about security. There is armed military, police every sort of 50 to 100 meters along the course. It is the most secure course I've ever run on, I think.
Yeah, just 2 things that I just want to mention also in 2023 was the year where one runner was videoed doing a number 2 in one of those lovely houses that Tim was describing. Just a reminder to all our listeners, with the proliferation of ring cameras and security cameras, you will get caught, so don't let that be you. And the other thing is Boston is known for bandits, so people that will photograph a bib or use last year's bib and put it on, etc., etc. You get a lot of bandits, and coming into that start, you know, the walk to the start line is you're actually walking down what is a neighborhood street, and you've got houses on either sides. And a vivid memory of myself is people running from those houses to join the course, and it was just it's fascinating to see. But just those two things. Don't get caught doing any sort of business in someone's front yard.
Yep. And then the last bit there is the finished precinct. It's a long walk. I think you alluded to that earlier on, Lucia. There is lots of food, water, etc. there at the end, but it's a long walk. You're about 2 to 3 city blocks walk just to get out of the precinct. I know, Tara, you struggled with it at the end there. You just wanted to get out of there and get back to the room. You don't even remember it. But it is a long walk, and it's just something everyone needs to be mindful of when they're doing it. As far as celebrations goes, pretty much every pub is celebrating. You'll find Samuel Adams beer everywhere. They do a special beer, the 26.2 beer, which we drank lots of and really enjoyed. It's a nice beer. But yeah, enjoy the celebrations. And I think that little hotel lobby bar that you were talking about earlier on, Tony, I was there and closed that one out as well on marathon night. But yeah, it was good. The celebrations were there. But I really wanted to talk about, part of what we talk about is the Flying Runner. We're travel people. Just the top couple of things we each do. I know we're running out of time, but things to do in Boston. I know Tara and I had a good time there, but what about you, Lucia? What would you say would be some of the things you would recommend to our listeners to do whilst they're in Boston?
I did a Boston food walking tour in the old part of Boston, and we went to about 4 or 5 major places. Like we had clam chowder at the oldest place, pizza, sweet treats. And the guide was so good. There was only 4 of us on the tour, so it was really personalised. So definitely recommend that. And if you're a baseball fan or not, you've got to get to a game at Fenway Park. It was just, I went with Tara and Tim and some others from our group as well. So much fun. But word of advice for any of our listeners, if you do go, they will ask you for photo ID when you're buying alcoholic drinks, and the photo ID and your license on your phone does not matter. It does not count. It has to be the physical ID. I got caught out, but courtesy to someone who will remain nameless, aka Tim. Tim sorted me out with a beer that night, so make sure you bring your physical license, because I was having an argument. I'm like, this is a government issued license. Yes, it's digital. She wasn't having a bar of it. She's like, no, I'm to the physical one. I'm like, all right, whatever.
And Tony, a couple of things that you'd recommend in Boston for people to do?
Yeah, we did the Fenway Park. That was wonderful. Real bit of history there. We went to Regina's Pizza at Faneuil Hall or whatever it's called. I always get there. And while we were there, we saw this young busker called Sam Demetrius, and he was really cool. So if you get a chance to go and to grab a Regina's Pizza at Faneuil Hall, keep an eye out for Sam Demetrius. And if you do see him, tell him I said g'day, because he then popped on to my podcast, my music podcast that I do. Aqueduct Tour. We'd been to Boston before. We did the whole Harvard and MIT thing as well. So did lots and lots of walking around Boston Common. So lovely city, and just really enjoy visiting.
Yep. And Tara, your last final moments before we wrap it up?
Yeah, we did the Freedom Trail walk, so highly recommend just buying a little book. You can do a self-guided tour. Goes through all the really important parts of Boston. Very informative if you're into that history side of things. We went to the Cheers bar, after the same place where they filmed the Cheers show, like the outside of that. We did a day trip out to Salem, which was really, really good. And yeah, the Faneuil Hall and Quincy markets are just amazing if you get a chance to go there. And also the Samuel Adams Brewery. Highly recommend that.
Yep. And the Boston Tea Party and Ships Museum, where you get to throw tea overboard and go,
huzzah! Huzzah!
Down with the British! Anyway, all right, guys, that wraps up our recollections of Boston. Hopefully our listeners have got something positive out of that and take it all on board. As we tend to wrap things up, I will normally provide a tip, but as I'm hosting this week, I'm going to hand it over to Lucia. Over to you for your tip of the week.
So my tip this week, it's about staying in the moment when it's race day, especially when it's a big race, i.e. Boston. So these were some of the things in which I did when it was Boston. Just really focus on your breathing, staying present in the current moment is key, and just taking it all in, because Boston's one of those races that if you're a back of the packer, you may only get one chance. So take everything in, keep your head up, look out for everyone just cheering you on, high five where you can, and settle with your breathing as well. Try not to breathe too fast because that's going to waste more energy. And sometimes if you feel like, sometimes when you're having moments, and trust me, I had moments during that race, it was just using positive self-talk, few words that get you going. Definitely have some of those, and consider, and also take into account, why are you running the race? Like, what is your why for doing it? So just taking everything in, because as I said, Boston's one of those races that some people may only get that one chance, and just soak it all up. So that's my tip, just staying in the moment when it's a big race.
Thanks, Lucia. That's a good tip. That's one of the reasons why we do so much videoing as well, so we can keep those memories as well. So thank you very much for that. Now, Tara, before we wrap up this episode, what is on next week?
Excellent. So next week we're going to reminisce about the London Marathon. It's going to be held 6 days just after the Boston Marathon. So London Marathon is my first marathon major, and I can tell you it's definitely one of my most favourite events. Starting at Greenwich, finishing at the Mall in front of Buckingham Palace, this marathon runs past all the iconic spots of London. We will talk about our experiences and memories of the event. We will talk about the Expo, as well as share our memories and tips and tricks on what to do, and more importantly, what not to do. The London Marathon is definitely an event which brings out the entire city of London. It's a big event which generates a lot of money for charities. We will pick it all apart and discuss the event from start to finish. And as usual, it will be another episode not to be missed.
Thanks, Tara. Now, that concludes our show for the week. I've really enjoyed going back down memory lane and sharing our experiences of what was another wonderful tour, even if our race, Tara, didn't go to plan on the day. I'd like to thank Lucia, Tony, and Tara for joining me tonight and co-hosting the show. Thanks for being here and sharing your memories and moments from Boston as well. I hope you had a great time. We love making these podcasts for you, our listeners. Your feedback means the world to us. So if you like, comment or message us on Instagram, Facebook or Messenger, or you can email us at happyrunning@flyingrunner.com, and we'd love to hear about your experiences in Boston or any tips that you have that you can help us share with our listeners. You may also choose to watch this episode if you want. I don't know why, but if you want to, you can watch this episode on Spotify and YouTube, or listen to us on Apple, Amazon, and all major podcast platforms. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll see you all next time on the Flying Runner podcast. Happy running.
Happy running.
Huzzah!